What's going on, guys? It's Lincolnite and I'm back for another video. Today I want to do kind of a little story time. I want to tell you guys about what I can only believe is the worst roommate anybody could ever have. If any of you guys watch this and you think you can top this story, I invite you to tell me about it. Leave it in the comments because I will applaud you if you can top this shit. So, a little bit of a backstory. In early 2018, I moved out of my parents' place and I moved in with two of my friends. We moved into, and just for a little bit of understanding here, we moved into a brand new house in the nice part of town. We ain't living in no trap house. We ain't living in the hood. Like this, we live in a nice neighborhood that has families, older couples, and it's in a nice part of town. Obviously, I'm sure you can see the scenery around me. You know, I ride around a lot of the same places in a lot of my videos. You can tell I live in a pretty nice area. We lived in this house for about a year, and one of my two roommates, he had to move out because he was out of work for a while. He wasn't able to afford rent. And so he moved back in with his parents. So the person that he found to replace us was this guy named Kobe. So before we even let Kobe move in, we had him come to the house and we all talked with him. We were like, okay, like, you know, understand, you know, this is our house. Obviously, this is where we live. These are kind of some of the things that we would expect of you when you move in. We like to keep things nice and clean. We take care of this house. Like I told him, I work for a living. I have to be up between like 6:30 and 7 in the morning for work. And so I'm usually in bed by 11. So I need things quiet by then. You know, I need my beauty sleep. So I said, you know, don't be making a bunch of noise late at night. Don't be having a bunch of people over. You know, we said, you know, obviously, you know, we're not going to be complete Nazis about this. You know, if you want to kind of live your life, you know, that's up to you, but obviously be courteous of everybody else. We also said, like, no smoking or vaping in the house, no drugs, obviously, like, we don't mess with that shit. You know, we outlined everything to him, and he was like, oh yeah, dude, like, that's not a problem, you know, I'm perfectly fine with all of that. And, you know, he agreed to it, and so we let him move in. So pretty early on, right when he moved in, he was bringing a lot of people over, and I mean a lot. Like every single day for like a solid 2 weeks, he would have around 3 people over. So Kobe was having like 3 people over or so, like different people, every single day for like 2 weeks. And we were like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, you're bringing a lot of people over right when you're moving in, and they're always different people. And these people kind of just like didn't really give off good vibes, you know? Like, you can kind of tell when somebody's okay. You did not get that feeling from any of these people. So on top of that, he would be going out into the garage and showing these people my car and my other roommate's car. Like, we both have pretty nice cars. I have a 2019 Charger RT. My other roommate has like a 2016 Scat Pack Challenger. So he would be going out and showing them our cars. He would be showing them my bike, and he'd be posting pictures of it like on his Snapchat story. And I was like, I didn't actually have this guy on Snapchat because I just didn't really feel like seeing what the kind of stuff he's posting, but my other roommate did. And she would be like, hey, like, he's been posting a lot of pictures of your car and stuff. And so I messaged him, I texted him, I was like, hey, I hear you've been posting up pictures of like my car and stuff. I would prefer if you didn't do that. I was like, I don't really feel comfortable with you posting that sort of stuff because, like, you know, if they know that that car is in our garage and they somehow find out our garage code, they could very easily get into our garage and be messing with my car, so I'd appreciate it if you didn't do that. And he was like, well, none of my friends would mess with your stuff, but I guess I'll stop. Like, I understand, but he just didn't really seem to be like friendly about the whole thing, which kind of will be explained a little more later in this video. So he was doing that, he was having people over, and it kind of got to a point where, like, you know, the people coming over came to a slow halt. Like, he wasn't always having people over, but he would be, and they'd be making a decent amount of noise in his room. Now, as I said earlier, like, me and my roommate that I first moved in with, like her and I were quiet. Like we just, we don't make a lot of noise. Like if we do listen to music or something, it's at a respectable volume where like I may hear it a little bit, but it's not obnoxious. That's not what this was. Like he'd be playing music and stuff, and it would be pretty loud. And he would do this like all the time, to the point that we would have to be texting him like, hey dude, I can very clearly hear your music and stuff. And that's not even when like people were over. He would be doing this every day. We're like, dude, like we can hear your music, can you please turn it down? And he'd be like, oh, okay, and maybe drop it by like 2 volume points. And we'd be like, look, we can still hear your music. It doesn't need to be that loud. If, you really want to listen to it loud, use headphones or something. And he's like, I can listen to my music if I want to. I don't need to turn it down. And we're like, we told you when you first moved in, keep things quiet. We live in a nice area. I about guarantee you the neighbors... Who the hell is honking? We about guarantee you the neighbors can hear this, on top of the fact that, we can hear it. Not only was the noise a big problem, he was never on time for rent. Obviously it's kind of a nicer house, the rent is a little more expensive, so we've almost kind of come to the conclusion that half the time he didn't even have the money for rent, and he would have to wait a while until he had that money. But he would regularly be about a week or so late for rent. And then bills too. We split everything equally in this house as far as electrical bills, water bills, Wi-Fi, stuff like that. We split all those bills equally. And so, we would just text into our little roommate group chat. We'd be like, hey, electric bill is $45 per person, or so, I don't know, just throwing out a number. And he'd be like, okay, I'll get that to you. You'd never see it. You would remind him, oh yeah, I'll get that to you later. Still never see it. So clearly he couldn't afford this house. And that was another thing. When we told him about everything, we told him how much rent was, about how much bills were and everything. And he was like, yeah, no problem, I can afford that. But so at one point we came home, or I was at work, and my roommate that I first moved in with, she texted me and was like, the house smells like weed. I was like how strong? Like, is this like, somebody outside may have been smoking it and it came in through the air? And she was like, no, like he was smoking weed inside the house. I was like, okay, that's not okay. Like, we told him no vaping, no smoking, cigarettes, much less drugs in the house. I came home like 3 hours later and it still reeked. I walked in through the garage door, like into our little mudroom, and it hit me like a train. And so we confronted him when he came home. We're like, the house smells like weed. What the hell were you doing in here? He's like, nah, bro, like I don't smoke that shit in the house. I would never do that. And I was like, we all know what weed smells like. This isn't like it was on your clothes and you happened to walk through the house. This is like it got smoked in this house and you're trying to like hide it. But so, we got on him about that. My roommate that I first moved in with, her mom got on him about it and was like, I don't want you doing that shit in the house. Because it's like, what if, obviously like you have to get dealed that shit somehow. It's like, what if some drug deal goes bad, they find out where you live and they do something to the house, and Christian and my daughter get hurt or something, like that's a pretty reasonable thing to be concerned about. That shit goes wrong all the time. That was the only time that ever happened. But then my roommate that I first moved in with, she would be like seeing on this guy Kobe's Snapchat story, he would be posting up bags of weed and would be like, $15, hit me up. Like he was dealing out of our house. And he's posting that on a Snapchat story, we can all see it. So we talked to him about that. We're like, are you bringing this shit into our house? And he was like, nah, bro, like I'd never do that. On top of all this, the music and the noise was still a problem. And there was one day I was just fed up with it. I was trying to go to bed and he was across the hall being super noisy. I texted him, I was like, hey, you need to knock off the noise. I'm trying to go to bed because I have work in the morning. And no reply, nothing changes. So like I was still in my room and I just like yell across the hall. I was like, hey, turn it down, I'm trying to go to bed. So nothing changes, he was still being noisy. So I actually go across the hall and I burst open the door. I just lay into the guy. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I take a lot to get pissed off. Like, I don't yell. I'm a nice guy. And I just start screaming at him. I was like, you're such a fucking annoying prick. Like, we've had to talk to you about this so many times. You'd think you'd get it through your head that this isn't something you can be doing. And I'm just like screaming at him, and he's just sitting there, and he's all like, I can have my volume up if I want to. Like, I'm allowed to do this sort of stuff. You know, I pay for rent here too. I was like, barely, you're never on time for it. But so after I was done yelling at him, I slammed the door. I went back into my room. I think he did finally turn the volume down. But so I think he stopped that for a little while. I don't really remember because this was about a year ago. But eventually, my roommate that I first moved in with, she does like online school and stuff, and she was trying to do homework, and Kobe was downstairs being loud. And when he came out, like he came upstairs to go somewhere, and she confronted him, and they got into it. She started screaming at him too, and Kobe ended up saying something about her mom, and she was like, don't you fucking bring my mom into this shit. She hates you too. Christian hates you. And she was like, I'm honestly the only one keeping you here. Christian wants to kick you out. And I think that kind of just like put shit into perspective for him, maybe, at the fact that like I didn't want him here, and that she was the only one, and that if even came down to it, that she would be willing to kick him out. So I think after a lot of that piled on top of him, he calmed down a little bit. But very shortly after that, like after he would like never be home some nights, and he was just gone all the time, we got a text message from him that was like, hey, when you guys get home, can we talk? And I think like it was like I wasn't really going to be home until later or something like that. But so a little while later, he texted us and was like, actually, I'll just let you know now, I'm going to be moving out at the end of the month. And he was like, I'll like pay rent, and I'll pay you guys all that I owe for bills, which he never did. And he moved his stuff out after scuffing up our walls and leaving a bunch of chips in the paint and stuff like that. And I went down into his room to go clean it up, which he said he was going to clean up but never did. And I found a bunch of like weed and shit in the carpet that I had to vacuum up. I was like, yeah, he was doing shit in this room, even though he said he wasn't. Like, but I guess he ended up moving into like some apartment or whatever. And it's like, I hope he really understands that the shit he was doing in this house will never fly in an apartment. You need to be on time for rent, or you will get evicted. You can't be playing loud music, or you're gonna get sound violations and shit. Funny thing is, his mom at one point came over to like give us the key and stuff, and she was even like, yeah, I know he can be very annoying. And she like pretty much like apologized to us, and was like, yeah, I don't know if he's really gonna understand that a lot of the stuff he was doing isn't really gonna go over well in an apartment. Funny thing is, one of my friends was actually talking to some kid who ended up being his current roommate. And even he was like, yeah, he's annoying. Well, guys, thanks for checking out my video. I'll go ahead and cut it off here. Still taking questions for my 100 subscriber special. I'll leave the link to that video here if you want to check it out. But thanks for checking out the video. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe while you're at it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.